Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It's Scott Dillon here from the SAP Cloud Platform Center of Excellence, and welcome to the fifth installment of our In the Garage SAP Cloud Platform series. We've got a really jam-packed content event for you today. And I'm joined in the garage today with Tyler Stubbs and Michelle Wang. So Tyler, can you give a quick 15-second introduction to yourself? Who do you work for? What do you do?
Sure. Hello, Scott. Hello, everyone on the call. My name is Tyler Stubbs. I'm a solution architect here at Mendix. We're a rapid application development platform. So my job is to own the technical conversation on the pre-sale side and build out POCs and really get hands-on with the platform, just like what we're going to do today.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyler. And Michelle, I don't know if you're able to say a quick hi, but Michelle leads our go-to-market within our Center of Excellence team and is responsible for the partnership between Mendix and SAP. All things Mendix, all things SAP. Michelle is our go-to resource, and she's on the phone with us today. She's got a bit of laryngitis, so I don't know if she'll say hi, but she's going to be handling all the questions coming in to the event. So I would just encourage people to use the Q&A widget at the bottom. So if you haven't attended these sessions before, we try to capture the questions in the Q&A widget, and then from there we can send a response back to everyone. And if you just have some general Q&A that's not so much product related, you can open up the group chat, say hi, and tell us how we're doing in there. So without further ado, we need to get started because we've got really, we're going to be right up to the end of the hour here this morning. But before I do that, we published a challenge last time, and I was told it might not have come through. So before we get to the end and miss the opportunity, we're going to give away some t-shirts. So we've been getting good attendance in these garage sessions. And I think what we want to do today is, once you watch today's seminar, if you want to build a simple application using the Mendix tooling and get it deployed on Cloud Platform, and then tweet me a link between now and the next series, we'll send you a t-shirt, one of a kind. SAP Cloud Platform Garage t-shirt, we'll take care of that. So anyway, that's the challenge. And so as we get into this, quick poll. Is this your first time attending the SAP Garage session? We will just hang out while you are submitting responses to that. We know there's a little delay just to give us an idea. Second of all, for those of you that are attending these sessions or it's your first time attending a session, we do have the next one coming up on, I think it's November 21st. And in that session, we'll be dealing with the newly released mobile development kit, basically building mobile apps using the web IDE and using that to generate a native application that can run on iOS and or Android. But just as we're going through here, so you can see we got a 50-50 split, people that are in the garage for the first time. So welcome all the new people, and of course, welcome to the people that have been here before. Moving on to the next, only the second poll that we have. Second poll is, have you ever heard of rapid application development by Mendix? This is just to give our speaker, Tyler, just a little bit of background before he goes into just 4 or 5 slides, introduce the topic. And we'll just hang out until we see a few responses on that. So appreciate your insight. And then we're going to jump into it. And so the idea today is we really want to show you quickly, quickly, how quick we can create a simple application using the Mendix tooling. And they've just recently released their web modeler. So we're going to give that a try. And we're going to use the business person persona, and then at the end we're going to switch over to a developer persona and make use of the desktop modeler, just to kind of give you a quick flavor of both. And so you can see, Tyler, we've got about 60% of the people on the phone today have not heard of rapid application development by Mendix, and about 40% have. So this is a good little thing for you to have in your back pocket. So without further ado, Tyler, you know the rule, under 7 minutes. To get through your slides, I think what you will see now is your first slide is live, so I'll let you drive until we get to slide 13, and then we're into hands-on mode. You good to go, my friend?
I'm good to go. Thanks a lot, Scott. So again, my name is Tyler Stubbs, and we're going to be taking a look at the Rapid Application Development Platform by Mendix. So this is a core offering that SAP Cloud Platform offers as a way to develop applications more quickly. And so as I start to introduce the platform, the fundamental belief behind why we exist as a company today is that we fundamentally believe that the delivery of applications and software is broken. And with that core belief, we talk to business leaders and IT leaders to find out what the fundamental challenge of bringing applications and software to bear for delivering on business objectives. And the fundamental challenge that we see is that the business demand far outweighs IT's capacity to deliver it. So when we're talking to the business, they say, we are leading the organization. We are engaging with customers on more channels than we ever have before, and applications are doing and automating more than they ever have before. IT department leaders are, and organization leaders are telling us that they're essentially tasked with supporting the business objectives. And so we see that the capacity is far below what it needs to be in order to actually fulfill the demands of the business. However, we do want to give credit where credit is due here. There are a lot of methodologies and tooling that has been developed in the past 5 to 10 years that have helped give the IT organization a lift, right? And some of those are bringing in an agile development methodology, integrating with PaaS and cloud layers and CI/CD pipelines for automating DevOps in the process, right? We're talking about full stack application development. Hiring more developers. That's actually really huge for us. So we hear from IT organizations that they're simply just trying to hire more heads for them to move faster in the same direction that they've set out in their organization. And lastly, they want to augment what they currently have capacity-wise with outsourcing some development needs external to the company. So, with that, IT leaders are essentially getting some good lifts to be able to execute on these business demands, but what we're still finding is that that gap still exists, right? And so speaking with a Fortune 100 bank CTO, essentially what they've mentioned is that they've spent millions of dollars eliminating the entire friction or all of the friction in the DevOps process. And the DevOps process has to do, obviously, with standing up new applications, spinning them down, procuring environments to deploy applications to. And they've eliminated the entire friction. They've built a quote-unquote 5-lane superhighway, and no one is filling it with applications. So the ability to actually develop applications on target back to the business is the key thing we're looking for here. So as we're talking to these leaders, essentially what we find when we go and engage with organizations is that there's a spectrum of developers, from more business side developers that have the domain expertise of the business, professional developers, as well as expert developers. So starting from the left-hand side, typically these domain experts are going to be working on productivity applications, starting the idea of an enterprise application, and they need real-time feedback with professional developers that are going to be working on more enterprise-wide applications on a variety of use cases. And that feedback comes in handy when they're delivering these applications. So it would be great if those two personas had a common language to actually speak to each other on. And as well, expert developers are a core part of this process that makes this entirely possible. And they are typically spending out more of their time in code, developing reusable components and services for the rest of the organization to use. So the model that Mendix brings to the table is allowing business developers and professional developers to work in a visual model-driven development environment that allows them to speak the same language. So instead of needing to read lines of code in order to communicate, they can essentially look at visual models, and that has to do with UI, logic, and data persistence in the application. That real-time collaboration is instilled at every part of the application lifecycle. So the Mendix platform helps develop and build applications that touch every part of the software development lifecycle, helps you govern them, and make use of your strong ecosystem of technologies that you've already developed in, such as deployment methodologies in SAP Cloud Platform and other public and private and on-prem environments. So when we say that we touch every part of the software development lifecycle, this is what we mean. We're accelerating the ability to ideate and track feedback in users, or user stories. So we have a agile toolset built directly into the platform, developing new methodologies for logic and UI, testing pre and post deployment, as well as governance. So as a kind of a summary here, we're a complete high productivity application platform as a service, and we are cloud native, deploying fully responsive applications, easily integrated, clicking with one-click deployment to any cloud, and we're going to see an example of that in the SAP Cloud Platform today, and owning applications with smaller, more cross-functional teams to spin up applications more quickly. So that's the overview from my side. I'll pass it back over to Scott.
That's awesome, Tyler. So you're the winner so far. That was just around 5 minutes, so that's amazing. So I guess what I heard you say was, and what I hear all the time is that especially bigger companies, they end up with a backlog of applications, and they're not always super complex. Some of them are, but they end up with a backlog of applications that they just can't seem to get out the door. And so that's a challenge that I hear. And then what I heard you say in a nutshell was, because of the way that we've developed this software tooling with the modeling versus writing lines and lines of code, all of a sudden the application creation process gets faster, quicker, more consistent, and are able to push these apps out faster. So this is kind of what I hear, and which is a really great story. But you know what? Proof's in the pudding, Tyler. So the goal is, and the challenge has been, the gauntlet has been thrown before my feet to see if we can build an app in around 30 minutes. And I'm going to say around in case we go a minute or two over, so I'll still be deemed successful. So let's see if we can do that. So Tyler, step one, I'm going to share my screen, and then we're going to walk through what I would like to do is build a really simple contact management application that if we're successful today, that people could see by the end of the next 45 minutes. So if someone can just put in the chat, or someone on the phone can tell me that yes, you're seeing my screen and they see my Google page, that'd be awesome. And I'm going to go to where you tell me to go. So where do I start to build this app, Tyler? Step number one.
Step number one, let's go to home.mendix.com, and you're going to be able to stand up a brand new application from our cloud portal.
Awesome. So I know myself, just a quick note here, you'll see my icon here on the right-hand side, me in my ski jacket, but I guess what's important for other people is that normally there would be, get started for free icon right here if you hadn't already created an account. So I've created an account, which is why you don't see that. But for people that are just coming in and want to follow along either after we're done or today, you just got to hit, start for free and then sign up basically, right?
Yep, exactly. So for folks that don't have an account, they'll be able to sign up very easily. And then you'll
All right, so it's perfect. Let's build this app. So I'm seeing a big BFB here. Big friggin' button. So I guess I'm going to create an app, right? Is that a good place to start?
Yeah. So for the folks on the phone, right, this is essentially kind of your homepage to your organization. So you'll see who's creating what, as well as kind of a subset of the applications that you're a part of yourself. And if the goal here is to create a new application, then yeah, we can hit that create app button.
All right, let's do it.
So what you're going to see here is a variety of different application templates. And so one of the core components of the platform is reusability, and being able to reuse full-blown application templates, a piece of logic, a piece of UI, honestly, a whole data structure. And a lot of the time, in your organization, you're passing these around anyway. And so we make it much more easily to pass those around and to actually enable the rest of the business to leverage those for development. And so you can see we have app templates that are SAP focused, that are starter generically branded, as well as an introduction to what that's to do with one of our Mendix Academy learning tabs. So for the purposes of a blank application, I think what kind of application are you looking to develop, Scott?
Well, just something where I could see, for today's purpose, first name, last name, telephone number, and a description. Maybe be able to see a list, see the details. That'd be perfect. And of course, being able to add them in to some kind of persistence layer would be ideal, but unlikely we'll get that done in a half an hour, right?
Yeah, I think we can do that in half an hour.
All right, let's do it. It's the gauntlet is thrown, so let's see.
Cool. All right, let's click on that blank application template there, and there's some basic UI and application flow that's kind of built into it already. That'll help us, essentially not start from scratch. So you can go ahead and click use this app and go ahead and name it.
All right. Garage 5 for the 5th session in the garage today.
Perfect. So, while this spins up, what this essentially is spinning up here is a project in the Mendix cloud. So, we have a cloud-hosted developer portal that allows that has a full collaboration suite and application management toolset built directly into it. And one of the first pieces, or one of the first tools that pops up on the screen here is the ability to deploy and choose your deployment environment. So Scott, if you could be so kind to choose your region of the SAP Cloud Platform that you're looking to deploy to, that you may have an account with to actually deploy to.
Absolutely. So I'm picking the U.S. East region here, and the reason I've done that, just to kind of show people, is that when they log in to our trial environment, they will have two options: go to Neo or go to Cloud Foundry. So you'll have to go to Cloud Foundry and then pick your environment, and then you'll see that it's automatically created for me a dev space inside of my trial account, so that when I'm back in the Mendix environment and I select it, what should happen is it should go out, it should contact SAP Cloud Platform, and then it should come back and prompt me, which it's doing. This is the dev space, and for people that have played with Cloud Platform in the past on the Neo environment, a dev space maps to a sub account in the Neo environment. So for people that want to separate their environments, dev, QA, and prod, this is how we do that. So what I will do is I'm just going to quickly show people here before I click that, I don't have any applications deployed. I don't have any services taken up. This is a blank space at the moment. And so what I'm doing, I'll just drop in here. Just need to refresh my page. Just before I hit click on the Mendix side, we'll just get logged in so people can see where we are headed and they can repeat the process after. And then you can click on, okay, I click on dev here. And then when I click on dev, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show people, if I click on service instances, it should be blank. So, because I went ahead this morning and I cleaned everything out. So when I go back now and I click on create, what we should start to see in the background, the Mendix development platform is now contacting SAP Cloud Platform in the Cloud Foundry space and saying, hey, I need to stand up the following 3, 4, 5 services, and here you can see them starting to come in now. So they're starting to be provisioned. So we can pop back here, but just to let you see that, here they come. So they're getting it ready for our app that we're going to build. So back to the desktop, the web modeler, and now we're back here, Tyler.
Perfect. So just a quick comment on some of the services being created there. So when we're choosing an environment, the services that are being applied to the application are things like, SAP authentication in the SAP Cloud Platform, a procured database. So you don't need to procure a database for an application for Mendix. So a great part about that is that it's eliminating the dependencies and needs on other services and other technologies that you might have in your stack. So each application is going to have its own database. So these are standalone full stack apps. So
awesome.
Bringing it back to the web modeler here, we're taking a look. We have the option to develop in our desktop development environment or our web modeling environment. So the person that uploaded this template essentially chose to essentially make us enable the web modeler. Some folks like to develop only in the desktop modeler, but for purposes today, we want to enable that in the settings of this application because we want to put on the hat of the business developer. So down at the bottom there, we get a nice big blue button that says Enable the Web Modeler. You click that. It's pretty seamless, so now it's enabled. So up in the top right-hand corner, you see View App and Edit App. If you were to hit Edit App, it would bring you directly into our web modeling environment. And notice I am saying modeling and not development. It's pretty interchangeable there, but because applications exist as visual models for the UI, for the logic, and for the data, what's great here is that the web development environment is going to be spinning up in our browser, so you don't need to download anything to start to develop an application here. And so that enables much more of the organization to get involved in the development process, which brings us back to the spectrum of developers in an organization. So instead of adding more heads to one organization, we're bridging the gap between business and IT to help enable the domain expertise to be baked directly in with the application and the IT's fortitude and reusable components here.
All right, so it looks like something has been created based on that template. And what are we actually looking at here now on my screen? I mean, I know I see the shell of an app, it looks like, but what do we have on the right and what do we have on the left?
Sure. So just to give a quick 5-10 second overview here, you're looking at the application as it stands today. So this is the home page of the application. This is the exact UI that the application will have. This isn't a mock-up or anything like that. This is exactly what it will look like. This is a fully responsive application, so you're viewing the mobile piece. You can use that kind of device switcher up at the top there to see what a tablet may look like or a desktop view may look like. So you can see that this will range the spectrum. So these are, again, fully responsive applications. On the right-hand side, you have a toolbox of things you can drag and drop onto the page. as well as a properties pane, and what we like to call a buzz feed for you to leave comments for other developers working on this project. On the left-hand side, you have more global tooling. And when I say global, I mean global to this application. So this is your global navigation, pages, data structure, microflows, which are going to be our pieces of logic that we're going to build. So we'll build one of those today, as well as some search and theming options down at the bottom there.
Okay, so lots of tools at our disposal, all operating within a browser. Very nice. Okay.
So,
all right, so I guess we need
let
to...
me know that you want to build a contacts application, right? So in my mind, what that really boils down to is you need a contacts page. You need to probably have a contact details page so you can view more information about those contacts. You probably need a piece of logic to actually create a new contact, as well as a button to wire that into. So does that about, I think, hit on what you were looking to do?
Exactly. Perfectly summarized.
Perfect. So let's go with step number 1 here. So we have a home page, and it looks like this application UI would be great if we were to do multiple things with an application. So I see an outline of what looks like a user or a person. So if we want to go to that open page button that's right below it there, what we can do is leverage that button to create a new page and wire it up to bring us to said page. So over on the right-hand side there, you can see the properties of this button. You can specify, what the caption is, as well as what the on-click action is. And it could be a variety of different things, like bringing up a new page, calling a microflow, which would be a piece of logic, as well as some other standard pieces of logic. So for all intents and purposes, right now, we want to show a page. So let's click page there under the on-click action. And so what this is going to bring up is a new select box for us to select a page and specify which one we want to show. And so because this is the one, to go ahead and click that. So now that we've kind of brought this up here, we're selecting a page. This is a brand new application. So we don't have that page. That doesn't exist yet. So this allows us to create a brand new one.
All right. How about I call this contacts? Seems to make sense.
I think it makes sense, yeah. Let me call out for a quick minute here just the page template that you're kind of viewing here. So, Scott's organization here has allowed him to leverage this app template when he downloaded the application, and that app template came with a theming package. And so there was an SAP as a logo, and there are many different page templates for him to choose from when he creates new pages as a starting point. And that can be all the way down to the bottom. We have a blank template, so we can choose blank here. And actually just create this from scratch.
All right. I like it. No shortcuts here in the garage, Tyler. No shortcuts. Right from scratch. We love it.
Exactly. So why don't we go ahead and drag and drop a new header up at the top of the page there on the main page. I think, we'll add this to the home page once we jump back to it. But for continuity purposes, we'll have each page kind of have the same header. So that way folks know that they're in the same application and there's a nice user experience for it. So it's pretty intuitive to start to wire up these different elements, as you can see Scott doing here. You can either double click on the the UI look itself, or you can change the caption in the box on the right. And so again, pretty simple to start to wire up here. So if you wanted to change the picture in that particular page element, you can go ahead and upload a brand new picture to the application so it can leverage it for some static content. So each application can essentially have its own file store as well as database storage. So when it comes to full stack applications, we're not lying here. So you can upload it fairly easily.
All right. I think I'm good. I took the opportunity to plug my technical academy sessions as well that are starting very soon, and I'll be live in Toronto. I think November 15th is the next one we're going to do. It's an all-day session, and we're covering Mendix there as well. But anyway, there's the TA logo embedded right into this really cool app. So all right. So now what? Like I've got a column. Kind of, I guess that's a container, right? As a column widget within the container. So I need to get some data in there, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you can see as kind of Scott hovers around the page there, you can see the different elements on the page, and that particular column has a container around it, and that clearly has some spacing, so it's nicely centered, right? You got some padding on the left and the right. So from my memory, if my memory serves, we're trying to show a list of contacts here for us to drill into. So if we go over to our toolbox and search for list, we can find a variety of different building blocks and widgets for us to use and drag and drop onto the page. So
All right.
if I'm looking through these different lists here, what I can do is probably choose one of these pre-styled lists. So if you can see, list 1 is kind of basic. List 1 item is a little bit different. List 2, let's drag and drop that one. I think that's probably my favorite one. I don't think we'll want to show any pictures for this list just yet. We'll keep it simple.
Okay. All right.
So perfect. So next step might be, this list is what we like to call a list view. And list view are essentially objects that you can drag and drop onto the page and pull from data sources. And that could be from a database or from a piece of logic that specifies the data source of this list. So if Scott clicks into the list view, just like he did there, what we can see is we can choose where this data comes from. And so for purposes of this contacts app, let's store the contacts in this application. So if we go ahead and choose the entity that we want to pull from, the entity would essentially allude to our data structure. And because this is a brand new app, we don't have a data structure in this database yet. So we can create a new data structure on the fly here. We don't need a DBA or anything like that to start to spin this up. You don't really even need to know about data modeling whatsoever. And so all we know is that we want to create a new contact object, and we want to track some data about that contact. So that's exactly what Scott just did. And now we can probably make this page a little bit more dynamic too. So let's choose see name on the list view there. That's some static text to help illustrate how this how this list view typically would be used. Instead of the static text name, let's go ahead and add an attribute to make it a little bit more dynamic. So this would actually show an attribute of that object. So as you scroll through, you might see the last name of each individual here. And so if we create a new attribute on the fly, this is the same as adding a new column in a table, right, in a database. And that's exactly what this is doing. So you can specify its name as well as the data type. So we can keep this as a string. And so now for every object in this list, you're going to see the last name of that object.
Wow. So, I mean, this is really, I think you mentioned it, and I'll just, I'll put a stamp on it because what you said was you don't really need a DBA. So there's no DBA present, despite the fact that I'm creating a quote unquote entity in the background. And so there's some magic there where these entities get created. We did see, one of the services that was created in Cloud Platform is a Postgres database. So somewhere in the middle, there's some magic that takes what we're doing here, simply creating an entity called contacts, creating some attributes, and it's going to take care of provisioning that for us and creating it in the database, right? So that's pretty fast. That's one of the reasons why it's so rapid, right? So we can eliminate some of these pieces that you would normally have a dedicated resource take and do for you, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then those resources that exist today would be able to be freed up to provide more valuable work on other core systems in the environment. That's the way we see our customers using our platform, is it frees up your best resources to really deliver valuable work on your core needs.
Awesome. Okay, so I've got the last name in there. I took out the second little piece of information because I didn't want that. So far, we're looking pretty good so far.
Excellent.
But I'm not seeing the details, so.
Yeah, step 2 would probably be to create another page for us to actually see more details about our contacts. So if you want to click on that list view again, in addition to kind of wiring up what you can see, about each object here in the list, you can also specify an on-click action. So very similar to a button. So if you see in the properties pane on the right-hand side, you can specify the on-click action. And similar to a button, you can specify if you want to pass the object that you just clicked on into a page, which will automatically do, or you can call a microflow that will essentially be a custom piece of logic when you click on that object. So for purposes here, we want to show that object in a new page that has some more fields so we can learn about our contacts. So let's hit page. Let's select the page just like we did before. Let's go ahead and create a brand new page here. So a little bit differently from our page last time. After giving it a name, what we can do is change the layout of this page. So instead of taking up the entire screen of the app, what we can do is make this a pop-up. So when you click it, slightly different user experience, so they can actually exit out of the page once they're done using it. And now let's go ahead and click that checkbox that's right underneath the layout. So what that's actually going to do for us here is it's going to recognize that we're passing an object directly into this page. And it even calls it out by name. It says pre-filled page contents based on the contact entity. And that's an entity that Scott just created. And so here you can see there's a couple of different page layouts for us to choose from. I like form vertical. It's very simple and basic. But you can see there's a couple of buttons that are already on the page, right? And there's going to be labels for all of the different attributes on the page. So let's go ahead and create that and see what exactly it creates.
Yeah, so in this case, I guess we've only added the one attribute so far to that table, right? So what we should expect to see is the creation of a form with that one last name attribute on it, correct?
Correct.
All right, that's exactly what we see.
There we go. Love it. So if we wanted to continue to create other information about our contact, how do you think we would want to do that, Scott? Do you want to drag and drop some text boxes onto this page and kind of create them on the fly, or do you want to create them in the view of the data structure?
I don't know. I mean, how do we see the data structure? Let's take a look at that. I'm assuming it's somewhere over here with one of these tools, right?
Yeah. So what looks like kind of an organizational hierarchy there, that's indicative of different entities that you might see in a domain model. So if we choose our module, which is the only module we have in this app right now, we can see on the fly, a little bit earlier, we saw Scott create a contact entity and create an attribute for that entity. And if we click on that, we can actually continue to add attributes to this that will exist in the database. So again, this is fantastic for folks when they're spinning up an application to be able to define this. And what's great is that these entities can be both persistent and non-persistent. So what that means is that if you're building an offline application, you'll have the ability to have a persist data, so even without a connection to the server, and actually be able to continue to leverage it. In addition, you can not persist data, which means that if you're connecting to core systems that have a single source of truth, you can pull that into an application, manipulate that data as needed or view it, whatever you need to do, maybe create a dashboard, but not post back to that single source, and it's not stored in the application to create a second source. So really good use cases there.
So I've got the 4 attributes. I feel like a pro now. So I just kind of go in there, click new attribute, and spell the attributes, and away I go. And I know, no DBA required, no DBA degree required to create an entity with a few attributes. So that's done. So now I guess the question is, how difficult is it to get those new attributes added back to that contact details page?
Sure. So let's jump back to that details page and see if we can map those to some text boxes on the page. So if we search for text in our toolbox on the right-hand side there, we can see what text widgets and page elements we can use. So you can see text boxes there. That's probably one of the most used widgets on a page here. So if you drag and drop that directly underneath last name, we can then wire that text box to one of our new attributes.
Okay. Just trying to get it positioned here.
Sure. And so what I love here is down at the bottom, while Scott's kind of arranging those, you can see kind of a breadcrumb list. You can see navigation layout, page, row, column. And what's great is that actually allows you to kind of navigate the different layers of page elements that you'd have on a page. And so what's great is that number one, you can track the breadcrumb and actually find out where exactly you are, so you can highlight the right container, the right layout. And also, what's great about this is that it's actually very intuitive. So something you wouldn't be able to see on screen, Scott can actually use Control-Y and Control-Z to actually go back and redo certain things. So if we ever wanted to undo anything or to redo anything, it supports that, as well as the delete button functionality, etc. So we got first name in there, we got telephone number, last name, as well as a description. So pretty awesome.
All right.
So I think a couple of those elements are out of the data view container. So I think what we're going to want to do is drag those text boxes into the data view. So you can see a small little box down the bottom that says data view content. We're going to want every text box here to exist in that data view, because that is essentially what's passing that object into the page. And that's pretty key here that, you can have multiple different objects passed into a page, right? Or associated objects into a page as well. So if you have, associated contacts, right? A contact is associated to a business, and they work for 3 businesses. You can display kind of a list of those all at the same time.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
do we have all those fields in the data view?
Yeah, I believe so. I guess now I just need to find out, how do I map these fields to the entities or to the entity attributes, right?
Sure. So now that you have one selected over on the right-hand side, you can see attribute right there. And so let's specify, if we click attribute there, we can choose what attributes we want to map to what text boxes.
Oh, that's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what's great here, so you went ahead and changed the name of these text boxes, but what's great is that it'll actually pull in the name of that attribute and actually just rename that label directly for you.
Beautiful. I love it. Okay. This is good. All right.
So we 4 for 4?
I think so. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 input text boxes and 4 attributes, all mapped. All right, making good progress here.
Awesome. So that has a save and a cancel button. So we'll actually we'll use that a little bit later on. So we got 2 steps down, 2 steps to go. So let's go ahead and go create the functionality to create a new contact.
Okay. So where do I want to go for that? Do I want to go back to the main page?
Yeah, let's go to our contacts page. There you go. And so over on the right-hand side, essentially, we want to add a button to the page that will map to a piece of logic that will create a new contact for us. So if I search for button, you can see down at the bottom there's a variety of different buttons with standard functionality and the ability to call different microflows or different logic whenever they're clicked. So let's go ahead and drag a call microflow button onto the page there and actually go create a microflow, aka a piece of logic, for creating a new contact.
All right.
So awesome. So once you click on that button there, over on the right-hand side, we can do a little bit of styling here. So what Scott's doing is renaming what this button is actually called, right? And what we can do now is jump into and choose a microflow that this button will map to. So up at the top there, you can see the on-click action is microflow. We don't have any logic built in this application yet, so let's go ahead and create some. Cool. We can call it probably create contacts. Makes the most sense.
All right.
Great. And this will introduce us into our microflow environment. So a microflow environment is essentially a drag and drop area for you to drag different activities in the middle of a start node and an end node. So every microflow has a starting point and an end point, and activities that happen in the middle. And those activities can range from full, create, update, delete behavior on objects, list operations, and creating conditional logic. So these pieces of logic can actually get pretty complex. And so Scott,
and
if you hit that blue dot in the middle.
Yeah, it looks like a bow tie. Is that all right? It's not a bow tie though.
No, totally is. So, good catch on that. So this essentially is what we like to call Mendix Assist. So we're the only low-code platform out there that has built an AI as a part of their platform to help developers build custom logic. And so what this is based on is 10 years of modeling and logic building experience, all rolled into an AI-assisted tool directly in our development environment. So if you can see, based on our current microflow that doesn't have any activities in it, some of the first starting activities might be, retrieving objects from a database or creating a new variable, or in our case, creating a new object. So it actually hits it right on the money there. If we want to select create a new object, what this is doing is automatically creating the activities for us. So it has added that new activity, and the only thing we need to do is specify what entity we want to create a new object for. So if we look up in the top right-hand corner there, we can actually choose an entity to create a new object for, and we'll choose contacts because that's the only entity we've created so far.
Perfect. Okay. It looks like the bow tie is back.
Yeah, let's see what it has to say. Awesome. So step 2, after we create an object, typically we can see that the next step would be creating a new object or adding a show page activity or creating a new variable. So again, hits it right on the money. We want to show this new object in a page so that a user can enter some details about this new contact that we're creating. So if we select that, it's going to add that activity. And over on the right-hand side there, we can specify the page that we're going to use to pass this object into. And since we created that contact details page, which with all of the fields that we need to fill out with a save and a cancel button on it automatically, we can leverage that here.
Beautiful.
And lastly, up in the top right, we can specify an object to pass into this page, which will be that new contact that we just created with the previous activity.
Oh, okay. So I guess, as I'm looking at this for the newly initiated, I've got some sort of process flow that's going on. And I guess what it really means is that when I'm back on this contacts page and I hit the create contact button, behind the scenes now it's going to call that microflow. The microflow creates this in-memory object as a placeholder for the data, and that data then, as within the object, gets passed over to the, creating or showing the contact information, right? So we're stringing them together, even though there's no on this page. We didn't see in the microflow where it was coming from, but we know because when we click on this button, here's where we create that microflow.
Exactly. And so on that page, there's a save button, and that save button will eventually commit that to the database, and that way we can persist that data.
Gotcha. Okay, so looking good here. So I think seems like we're almost done on the creating of this initial app. Am I wrong to say that?
No, you're absolutely correct. We have a contacts page that we can get to from the home page. This contacts page shows a list of your contacts. You can drill into one of those and see more details about it. And you can also create a new contact with our button on this page here. So I think we are pretty done.
Okay, that's great. So we have contacts. Okay, good. All right, so let's take this to the next level. So I think we've been operating in the persona of a business development type person who has an idea for an application that needs to be built out. He or she pops into the web modeler, they get access to some functionality, but there is another place, right? Another set of tooling that's available on the desktop that is even more full featured than what we've been accessing here. And so the question is, how do we use that?
Exactly. So this is the web modeling environment geared towards, less technical, more business-minded folks. And so, there's some guardrails on here, right? Because, for making integrations and applying security, typically reserved for more professional and expert developers. So from that standpoint, we have a desktop modeler or a desktop development environment that we can actually download this project to if we go back to the Mendix developer portal. So before you click on that, Scott, for a quick second. Okay, I already clicked on it. Oh, well.
Sorry. Want me to go back?
All set there. Yeah, for a quick second. Just for continuity purposes for the folks on the phone, I'd love to be able to add that header directly to our homepage there. I know we said we were going to do it, so I wanted to make sure to kick that off.
Gotcha. Okay. Give me 30 seconds here while this modeler comes back up. Let's see if I can throw that in there pretty quickly.
Sure.
I was just too quick.
I know, yeah. Plenty of tooling and plenty to click on and plenty to do. So just while this is getting kind of spun up real quick, essentially the application that we put together here in the web modeler is contained in a local copy, right? So this local copy application is essentially, it exists for us as we're developing it. This isn't published out to the SAP cloud platform yet or to any other portal. And so the whole reason for that is to allow the developer to see the application as they're building it before they even need to publish it out to a development line. We hear from a bunch of IT developers themselves, as well as IT leaders, that they say they wait way too long for any sort of publishing out in the process.
Okay,
that looks about done.
Yeah, I'm going back to the Mendix portal now.
Perfect. So let's go up to Edit App. Let's use the drop-down arrow, and we can download this project directly into our desktop modeler.
So let me just get this straight here. So I've got Mendix portal. We started out by selecting an app template. We've modified that as a business person persona with a certain skill set, and I like your term with the guardrails on. And now what we're saying is, hey, let's transition over to the desktop modeler. And I think what we're seeing here is that something is happening to download that app construct or that code or this framework into the desktop tool. Is that what's happening here before us as we watch the downloading app a little bar pass back and forth?
Yeah, absolutely. So what's great about spinning up a brand new application is that, number one, you were able to start that from a template. So there's some best practices already built into that. Number two, it creates a project on what we like to call a team server. And that's essentially a cloud-hosted repository where you're going to be able to save all of your changes to your applications, do some branching, some merging, and full versioning of an application. So there's a source control already built in. And what's great here is that it's downloading that project directly to this desktop local development environment so that you can work on it here locally. And you can eventually commit your changes to that source control, apply versioning, create your own branches, etc., and even synchronize with the web modeler and all the local changes that we just made.
All right, we've got about, time check, we got about 10 minutes to get this done, Tyler. No pressure.
Cool. No pressure at all. Let's see if we can get it done. I'd probably put my money on around 6.
All right, let's go.
Awesome. So you can see that we pulled down this application, and it's the same template that we started with, right? And that's because the team server hasn't, this project here hasn't been synchronized with the local copies we made in the desktop modeler. So you can see down there, Scott navigated to the Changes tab, where we can see the local changes we've made. And if we click the Sync with the Web Modeler button, what this is going to do is pull down the changes that were made in the Web Modeler. And this is fantastic for working on the business side as well as the professional side. So Scott, if you can really quickly navigate to the Web Modeler again, if we were to log into that in the browser, what we'll actually see is that Web Modeler will be locked out to prevent any conflicts of development. So there's definitely some conflict resolution that was built into to the modeling environment with that in mind. So this will prevent two developers from working on them and creating conflicts.
All right, let's have a look. It takes about 30 seconds or so for this to come back. Yeah. Come on, Mr. Web Modeler.
So if,
6 minutes.
If I can kind of touch on, if we can touch on maybe one thing we were going to try and do a little bit later on. I think last week you ended up working with an SAP workflow service. And is that going to be built into this application as well?
Well, this is like we're already pushing the envelope now, right? We're talking about a contacts app, and now we're talking about for people who weren't on the phone about 2 months ago, we used the tooling inside of SAP Cloud Platform to build a registration app, which would then kick off a workflow where people could be approved. And so one of the things I thought would be really interesting is how hard would it be to basically inject a call to that workflow service so we could show here, here's Mendix, very comprehensive platform working with SAP Cloud Platform with 50, 60, 70 odd services, and how those two could be brought together. And so the question would be, how difficult would that be to do?
You know what? I think we could do that in about a short amount of time. I think we can fit that into the 6 minutes.
All right, let's see.
Yeah. So, all right, so great. So this actually pulled down all of our local changes. So if you double-click on the home page there, so let me kind of introduce the desktop modeling environment here. Down at the bottom, you can see all the changes that were made as we brought it in from the web modeler. On the left-hand side, that's a project explorer. So it breaks down your application into its relevant domain model, pages, and workflows and everything you built into it. And you can have multiple modules for a single project. And so if you're bringing in integrations or new modules that maybe your expert developers have made for you to reuse in your projects, like we're going to see with the SAP Workflow Service, that's where you'll be able to add those. So on the right-hand side, you can see that's similar to our toolbox in the Web Modeler. And so we have our Properties pane as well, which is great to work with. So if you think that this page looks different than our page did in the Web Modeler, if you can hit View Mode right there next to the Toolbox header on the right-hand side, Scott, that will actually show us a real-time view of what this application looks like. So a little bit to the right of that, that drop-down, you have Show Styles and Edit Mode. And we've selected Edit Mode currently. If we choose View Mode, we can see a real-time rendering of what this page looks like. And you can see, hey, we get our static image, we get our header, right? And you can choose, the device switcher up at the top there. This is the responsive view. And then if we were to choose phone, we can see it gives kind of a phone overview.
All right.
So, awesome. Let's start to do some development here. So we get our contacts in there, and I think the next step that we want to build in is that workflow service. So how about we leverage that second button on the page there? So we have contacts as the first one. Let's leverage the other open page button there. And let's double click that. So this has the same properties as in the web modeler here. So this is a button. So we can specify its caption, which will be probably workflow. We can then change its events, when somebody clicks on it, to a variety of different things. So instead of doing nothing, we would probably want to create a new object. So what we're doing here is going to be creating a new object for our workflow service. So I would hit just OK for now, Scott, for a quick second.
Okay.
And so one step that we're going to need to do is actually import our SAP workflow service call into this project for us to actually leverage it. So very easily, if your expert services team creates reusable modules within Mendix, what you can do here is actually package those up as modules and import them directly into your projects. Now, as I mentioned before, each module has its own data structure, logic, pages, and a bunch of different resources to use. So you can go ahead and directly import this. And what this is going to show is that it has a data structure already. It has logic that we can use out of the box, so we don't need to create anything. And it has pages that we can use. So you can see over on the left-hand side here, we now have augmented this project with an additional module. So this is SAP Workflow module, and we have an SAP Workflow Service call. So let's go back to that button, and let's leverage that workflow that has been made for us. So if we change the event from do nothing to create a new object and specify an entity, if we look at our new module's data structure, it's going to have an entirely new entity available to us, and it's called workflow request. So we want to create a new workflow request, and we want to generate a new page for that request. So if we hit select there, we can go ahead and select the new page. Down at the bottom, new page. And this will bring up a very similar template view. So we can keep the same name, we can choose our form, and then hit OK. And so this will automatically create a new page with all of the fields that we need, similar to how we did in the web modeler. So if we actually were to show that page.
Wow. Okay. So we have a page built, which most people on the phone should recognize as being very similar to the registration app that we built. First name, last name, email, and role, all based on that same data structure. Very nice. Okay. So then how do we get this thing kind of kicked off? Or is it all wired together now? Is that basically all there is to it? So I've had you prior to today work on create that module. I've imported it in on that main page. I'm now calling and using that workflow service object. What's left?
Cool. So let's change that save button to instead of saving and committing this to the database, let's go ahead and generate a workflow. So call that microflow. So how about we change the name from save to workflow or generate workflow, and then let's change the on-click event to instead of save changes, let's change it to call a microflow, and let's call that new microflow that came in with our new module.
Okay. Just like that.
That's it. So just like that, we are done. So let's hit OK.
All right.
Great. So let's actually run this bad boy. So we have no errors in our project. So up in the top there's the ability to run in the cloud as well as run locally. So let's hit run locally first, just so we can see what this application looks like. And so this is a great tool, again, for developing locally and giving you the ability to test out your application before needing to develop into any cloud-hosted development lines. But essentially
you're
what
pretty
this is
confident.
Doing is,
Sorry. I said you're pretty confident, Tyler. I mean, over the last 35, 40 minutes, we've gone through a few steps. We started in the web modeler, built out an application which had some persistence associated with it, created an entity, put some attributes in, and then we synced it to the desktop modeler, where we then imported a custom module that you had built out for me to invoke the workflow service on cloud platform. We just wired that in, and now we're just going to try to run it. And you think that's all is going to be well here? Let's. I just noticed this change from a light gray to a black. Let's see. And
cool.
We have an app.
Real time, folks. So if it doesn't work, I mean, it doesn't work. But if it does, it does.
Contacts. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Test. Garage. 3. 1. Save. There's my guy. There's my detail screen. Sweet. Okay, this is amazing. So last 3 or 4 minutes here, Tyler. How do I get this into a state where people could execute it themselves from wherever they're sitting right now?
So yeah, so let's go ahead and go into the modeling environment. Let's go to that drop down next to, let's run this in the cloud. So what's great is that this development environment is directly linked with our development environment in our cloud-hosted repository here. So what this is going to do is deploy directly to the environment that we specified in SAP Cloud Platform, directly from this environment here. And so if we keep that screen up, keep the SAP cockpit up, you'll actually see a application get started and actually start to run in your SAP Cloud Platform environment in real time. That takes honestly about 2 to 2.5 minutes to deploy for the first time. That's when we were timing it last time. So,
all right, so
once we see that running, what we can do is actually even before it starts to run, let's head into the development environment and let's get that QR code up. So up on the top right, you can hit the drop down next to View and say View on the Mendix mobile app.
Okay. So so everybody that's on the phone, here's what we're going to try to attempt to do in the last 2 minutes. So as this app is being deployed, you can see it's in motion. It's been deployed. It's still in the stop status. It's going to change from stopped to started in red and then started in green. So the first person, so number one, if you scan if you scan the QR code that's currently up on my screen, when that becomes started, you should be able to click the workflow button, submit 3 or 4 key details, and then if all goes well, if people remember correctly, we should see an entry here. So the first 2 or 3 people that put something in here, we're going to send them also some t-shirts. So we just got to go back here just for a second. Let's see what this is now saying, because I know it's about a 2-minute.
Just while this is deploying for a quick second, if you want to go to that application and actually show how to actually generate a workflow.
Sure. So let's go back to View.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. That's I got to view the local one. So now it's trying to. Let me see if I have it up here. Did I keep it up? No. How do I bring up?
It's not running locally. Yeah, you got to go back to the development environment and run it locally. So it's going to continue to try to deploy in the cloud, but while that's doing that, we can run this locally.
Okay, let's do that at the same time.
So multitasking here.
Multitasking big time.
Sent over. Yeah, very automated, very automated. And so when this starts to run locally, and instead of hitting the contacts button, we can hit the workflow button.
Right. So basically, we have the workflow. So basically, people could kick in here. And then what we should see, if all goes well today, employee, we hit workflow. Something should be kicked off in the back end. So been established. So now I go back to my inbox, hopefully, and do a refresh. There's my request. So let's just quickly check to see if the app has been, so it's started. So now if we quickly go back, Tyler, and see if people are, if I say View on the Mendix app, is that going to show me the local code or the cloud code?
If you are running locally, it's going to save local to your computer. If you're viewing the cloud-hosted application with the cloud URL in HANA, in your HANA trial account, then that'll be saved in the cloud.
That's the local address. So how do I get if I go run then back here? Mm-hmm. So I guess I had to do it a second time, right?
No.
Okay.
You just hit cancel there. Yeah.
Okay.
We just
but this should be the one here.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
So all people have to do is to see this end result, whoever gets in there, scan it with your phone, and let's see if we can get one person to be here. So they should be able to see that app. That would be the perfect scenario. But I guess just in terms of summing up, I don't know, we're just 2 minutes over, but the summary would be number one, from start to finish, creating an application with a form, with some logic, with some persistence in the web-based modeler, completing that, hopping over quickly to see the desktop modeler where the application was synchronized down, the import of a custom module just to show that the work can be modularized amongst different people, brought that in, wired that into the app. So if we have a contacts app, we can create your own contacts, and we also have a piece of the functionality brought in to call the workflow service sitting on SAP Cloud Platform. So if I just go back one more try here, did anybody manage to get it up working? And there's Tyler for sure, it's in there. But it doesn't look like anybody that was on the phone had a chance to get that submitted, unfortunately. But anyway, that's really good. Let me pop back quickly let me stop sharing. And let me pop over to the On24 and just see if there's any quick questions that we needed to answer here. No, it looks like everything's been answered in the Q&A. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming online. Really, really appreciate it. Again, just to reiterate the challenge that was put forth, based on the knowledge you gained today, build a simple app, tweet me out at ScottDillon1, that's my Twitter handle. Send a message to me, do the hashtag SAP Cloud Platform and or SAP Garage. And if we see a couple of apps coming through, we'll send you a couple of t-shirts in the mail. So thank you very much for coming out. Everybody have a great day. Take care.
Thanks all.